I'm lucky that in my time the cameras weren't there and every moment of duels were checked after. Otherwise, I'd have a lot of more yellow and red cards maybe. I think, and I agree with Adam, that it should lead to more fair endings of games, ending of seasons by making the right calls. But in fairness, yesterday the game was been played in its manner, in a manly manner. A lot of duels were not called back or being penalized by a foul. So I think before the goal scored by Foden, that was also a manly duel. It shouldn't have been disallowed by the foul. So in this case, I think his role was too much of an influence on the game. So most times I'm happy with the foul, but not on these cases.
Pep Guardiola was upset, and the reason he said he was upset was because the game had been allowed to be quite physical. That there were, I mean, as I'm stood watching the game in the away end, I noticed that there was a lot more contact between players than normal. And to be fair, I thought the referee was quite even-handed in the way that he let that happen. And he did let the incident happen with Haaland and the goal scored, and it was VAR that brought it back. I mean, I wrote a newspaper column today, and I basically said the second referee, which is the man who's at Stockley Park where the VAR is, hadn't been presumably part of that conversation where Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp and the referee on the day, Anthony Taylor, had actually spoken about this, and Taylor had said to the two managers, I'm going to allow a bit more physicality, which then you would think mean that would explain why you let the Haaland incident go. But then the referee at Stockley Park, who's looking at it with no emotion, no crowd, trying to look at it forensically, then says, no, that was a foul, so I bring it back and disallow it. Now, that's not entering in any of the conspiracy theories that people have, that this was, which is perhaps what Adam's suggesting. I'm just looking at it now forensically, and that's how it feels to me. What do you think, Michel?
Yeah, I think the man you speak about he's in the game. Anthony Taylor was in the game. He let the game flow. A lot of things were not penalized by a foul. And it made it an interesting game. It was like a fighting game instead of a high-quality game. I very enjoyed the spirit of Bernardo Silva. He made tackles. He was chasing people. He's tackling people. And he even attacked Mo Salah on his own half. And Taylor let it play on. And that was a great game to watch. And it was a fighting game. And it made it spectacular to watch. And then the decision to go back on a goal by the VR, that's quite disappointing.
How would you have felt playing in that game, Michel? Because as I remember, you didn't shirk a tackle, did you?
No, I like to tackle, and I was a physical player. And what I said before, I think if the cameras were back then, a lot of fouls will have been penalized, and a lot of players got more yellow and red cards, perhaps. But in the end, it is made and organized to let games be fair and not lose by a stupid decision by a referee or a linesman. And that can be called back, and then it's more fair. So in that case, I'm for the VAR, but not in these decisions. If you let the game play like it's played yesterday in a manly manner, then you should allow this not to happen. And the referee must have said, okay, I allow the goal, and I don't look at the VAR, and I don't look at the pictures on the sideline again, because he was influenced by the second referee, of course.
Once it goes to VAR, it almost feels to me as if every time the decision is going to be overturned. Niclas, you've listened to what we've said so far. What are your thoughts on the game generally and on that particular incident and how significant it was?
No, I can't add a lot, because I agree with most of what you guys already pinned out. I hate VAR. I mean, I've been the biggest critics of it since it started. Obviously now it's a lot better than the first year or two, but but to me, it's just it hasn't become a more fair game. I don't think so. I just think that obviously there are situations where the VAR comes to its rights and overturns some mistake that the referee didn't see or the linesman, but it has just moved to something else that we're discussing. And if it's like a 50-50, we still get these big mistakes, then for me, a lot of the charm in football is also, like you already spoke about, the feeling on the pitch, in the stands, and now you can sit in miles away in a van with a little joystick and take frame by frame, and the crowd has to wait for 30-50 seconds to, is it a goal, is it not a goal, can we cheer I mean, I absolutely hate it. So and again yesterday also as a former player, you know, like the referee already before the game said, I want to allow a more physical match today. Then you know, as a player, if this happens and they just take one decision out, and it's not even, it's leading up to the goal, of course, but it's not in one decisive scene close to the goal, then it's like taking back, and how long can you take it back? Then you have to discuss that. And I mean, I might be old-fashioned, but I really don't like VAR, and that game yesterday, to me, it was also clear that if it's the inconsistency about the line that's put through the game. If you have a referee on the pitch and he can't, because he obviously saw it and he didn't thought it was anything because that was his line, and then they sit somewhere and they say, call him in the ear and say, yeah, we call it back, and it's Haaland pulls his shirt, and yeah, there was shirt pulling for the the first 60 minutes also. So yeah, I don't like it.
I must admit, I have been anyway in the past a very emotional person. I spent a lot of time commentating on games and showing everybody the emotions that I felt. And I've been a fan for 47 years, going to every game, home and away. Obviously, I've seen every game that you two played in a sky blue shirt. And I have to admit that partly perhaps because of playing behind closed doors, but also partly because of VAR, that some of the emotion, or probably more because of the VAR actually, some of the emotional has gone. So even though, and I must be in a minority, because when I was in the away end at Anfield, everybody around me went absolutely mental when the goal went in. And whilst I sort of smiled and acknowledged it, I didn't jump about. And I kept thinking, we're going to see the letters VAR appear in a moment, and yet I hadn't seen anything wrong with it. And when VAR went up, I thought it must have been that the ball was kicked out of the goalkeeper's hands. It was the only thing I could think of, but it's the only thing I could observe. So the people around me are all going, what's that been disallowed for? You start texting people. I'm texting my son then at home saying, what's happened? Why has this been disallowed? And even he, who's watching it on TV, isn't quite certain. And I just think, and I've felt it for a long time, that the way that VAR is used, it has taken away a lot of the emotion of the game to me. I mean, Niclas, imagine that goal you scored against Leeds that everybody remembers you for being ruled out because there'd been a player come back from an offside position, 6 passes earlier or something. Imagine how that would have felt to you as a player.
Yeah, that would have been awful. Obviously, I would have had to score a cracker in the next home game then. But of course, it's no, it's I know it's a different time now, and I can obviously I don't want anything not fair if we can 100% certain see, okay, that's a clear foul. Goal line technology, I'm all for it, because you can't discuss it. It's not a matter if it's you or me seeing this. I think they are allowed to play a little bit more physical than you or someone else. Then we're discussing it anyway, like we did before VAR. And then if you take away that charm of the football, then I think that we lose too much in bringing in VAR. That's my opinion.